Steel Profiles podcast is brought to you by AISC Continuing Education. Visit aisc.org/seminars to find a seminar in a city near you.
Welcome to another episode of Steel Profiles. I'm your host, Margaret Matthew, Senior Engineer in the Continuing Education Department at AISC. My guest today is Theodore Galambos, Professor Emeritus of Structural Engineering at the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis. Ted received his bachelor's and master's degrees from the University of North Dakota in Grand Forks in 1953 and 1954 respectively, and his Ph.D. in civil engineering from Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania in 1959. He had an academic research and teaching career at Lehigh University, at Washington University in St. Louis, and at the University of Minnesota. He is author of several technical books and scores of published articles. He is an honorary member of the American Society of Civil Engineers and a member of the National Academy of Engineering, the Structural Stability Research Council, and the International Association of Bridge and Structural Engineering. He is a registered professional engineer in Minnesota and Missouri and has been a longtime member of the AISC Specification Committee. He holds honorary doctorates from the Technical University of Budapest, the University of North Dakota, and the University of Minnesota. Welcome, Ted. Thank you so much for agreeing to be my podcast interview today.
Glad to be here.
You immigrated from Budapest to Hungary when you were 19 and then did your bachelor's and master's degrees at the University of North Dakota. How did you make it all the way from Hungary to North Dakota?
It's a long story because we left Hungary in 1944 in December, a couple of days before the Soviet Army. And we spent 4 years in Germany. During that time, I did finish my high school in a German high school. I had to change languages. And then in 1948, we were brought to the U.S. by the United Nations. And then we were with my dad's aunt in Akron, Ohio. We were there 6 months, and I got a job in a fabricating shop. You know, just a yard boy bringing in the steel and scraping off the rust and punching holes and things like that.
And how old were you then?
I was 19. I was 20. And my father was a Baptist minister, and during that time, the first 6 months, he was at a seminary in Rochester, New York, and then he got a church in Washburn, North Dakota. And there I was unemployed for a couple of days. I was wandering around, and I wandered into the courthouse, which was next door. And there was a guy in the basement sitting at a drawing table, and I walked in there and I talked with him, and I found out that he was in the U.S. Army, and he had built a bridge in the town where I went to high school there in Germany. So we got to talking, and then I got a job as a surveyor's helper on a road job. I decided to become a civil engineer, so I contacted the University of North Dakota, and I went there in the fall. I had $300 that I made that summer. I paid for the tuition, bought the books and the room to stay in, and then I had no money left. So the employment agency from the university sent me to downtown to a restaurant, which was probably the best restaurant between Minneapolis and Seattle. And there I met a Lithuanian lady, and she put me on as a waiter. So that's how I then had my food. So in 4 years, I got my bachelor's, and then I was looking for work. I didn't find anything because I wasn't a citizen, so I stayed on and got a master's degree. And then I got a job, but I also became a citizen, so I was drafted a few months after that.
Oh, you were drafted. Okay, that was my next question, was you were in the U.S. Army.
Yeah.
So they drafted you. So what was that experience like?
It was very interesting because I had this experience as a surveyor by that time. I had 5 summers of surveying in North Dakota. So I was immediately classified as a construction surveyor, and after basic training, I did surveying. I was assigned to a airfield construction battalion in Well, you'll be surprised. In the Bahamas.
Oh!
I was, yes.
Boy, that must have been rough.
Well, it was rough because it was 7 days a week work and just a camp on an island with 500 other men. But what I did learn there is besides how construction work is done, I also learned a lot of humility and how to deal with people and how to know that there are people who are different from me. So it was a very good experience for life.
So how long were you in the Army?
It was 18 months.
18 months.
Yeah.
You kind of talked about how you kind of stumbled onto the civil engineering field. Was there something specific about it that really attracted you to it?
Well, before we came to the States, we were in a displaced person camp in Munich. It was an old German army barracks. And there were a group of American friends, the Quakers, that were working with the refugees, and we became friendly with them. My sister and I worked for them in a little library they had in camp. One of them asked me, well, what are you going to do when you come to the States? And I said, I don't know, but I'd like to go to college, and I had an idea that somehow I could work my way through. And she said, well, what are you going to study? And I said, I don't know. So she gave me a bunch of brochures from the Encyclopedia Britannica on different careers. I looked through that and I picked civil engineering and never regretted it.
So you already had that?
I didn't really know what it was until I saw that brochure. And I looked at other career paths and said, no, this is what I want to do. It was, things were easy.
You did your doctorate work at Lehigh University.
Right.
Where did your career take you after that?
Well, the reason I went to Lehigh was I was working at Babcock & Wilcox, which is a boiler power plant company.
Okay.
They asked me to see what happens to a power plant if a nuclear bomb went off a mile from the plant. I had no idea. So I interviewed a lot of people in the company, and I discovered that they had no idea either. So I said, well, maybe I better learn more about things. So I wrote to Illinois and to Lehigh. From Illinois, I got a nice letter from Bill Hall offering me a research assistantship. But at Lehigh, Lynn Beadle got on the phone the day he got my application and called, and that's how I went to Lehigh.
How you went to Lehigh.
And at Lehigh, September 1st, 1956, I had met John Fisher in the parking lot because he was starting that same day.
Same day, wow.
So we were friends ever since. So when I finished my PhD there, I stayed on I got the PhD in 59, and I stayed on until 65, working in the Fritz lab and doing research and teaching. And then I had a student who was there from Washington University. In fact, by the way, John Fisher also was at Washington University.
Oh, he was?
Yeah, he was. So I knew about Washington University, and this guy went back after he got his master's, and a couple of years later he called me and said, we need a professor here in structural engineering. Would you be interested? And I said, no, I like it where I am. He said, oh, just come on. Anyway, again, there was a guy there who, the department head, who could have sold the Brooklyn Bridge several times over in a day. So he convinced me to go there, which was, again, a perfect move. So I stayed there until, from 65 to 81. Well, about 1980, I was at Washington, D.C. at an NSF meeting, and this guy at the dinner afterwards was sitting next to me, and he said, I want to show you something. And he then showed me the plans for the underground building in Minnesota.
Oh, and that's how they lured you away.
And this guy was another one of those people who could sell the Brooklyn Bridge. So I went up to Minnesota. So that's how it worked.
That's how
so we're all kind of, almost predestined things.
So yeah, you were a professor at Washington University in St. Louis from 65 to 81. Were you in St. Louis when the arch was finished in 1965?
Oh, yes. that was a wonderful experience. I have lots of pictures of the arch being built, and then, as it went up from ground zero, and then the final coming together. Of course, they had that truss between the two arches. It came back like the pinchers on a bug,
Uh-huh.
And then when it became unstable or close to unstable, they put in a brace between the two branches, and then they kept on, and they finally came together. Oh, that was exciting.
Exciting.
But there were three things going on at that time: the arch, the Eads Bridge, and the stadium.
Oh,
which
the
they had.
stadium was being
Yeah,
built.
all of those things were going on, and I used to take the students down there. There was lots of good stuff going on, right at the same place almost.
Yeah, that's all right there, right in downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you take your students down to see what was going
Oh
on?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been great. That would have been
Oh,
very
that was a wonderful experience. Then, of course, the Eads Bridge was there too, which was it's a historic
Yes.
structure. So
They're building a new bridge.
yeah,
They just broke ground
yeah,
on it.
further up.
Further north, yeah.
Yeah,
But still right there in downtown. So
Yeah.
that's going to be exciting the next few years.
yeah.
Jim Fisher told me a story about a research project you did in St. Louis at the infamous Pruitt-Igoe housing project, a building that was scheduled for demolition, or I guess it was many buildings that were being
There's
demolished.
39 buildings.
He said while he was there working on that with you that he feared for his life for multiple reasons.
Oh, he did, huh? Well,
Can you tell us about that project?
He's a chicken. See, I believe in structures, okay? And I knew it wasn't going to fall down.
Well, and he said he trusted you that it wasn't, but he said once he got up in the building and it was moving that he was
Yeah.
not so sure.
Well, what happened, I don't know how much of this you know.
About Pruitt-Igoe.
Yeah.
I did some research, and I didn't know anything about it. Was really stunned to find out it was right there in St. Louis, where I live.
Yeah.
And it's really a fascinating story about
yeah.
the whole project. And
Well, anyway, it failed
Yes.
sociologically, and they were going to demolish, and they had a trial of trying to blow things up. So they took, I think, one building, and there was this guy from Dallas. In fact, he was an AISC speaker a number of times. But at any rate, they blew up a building, and there was a lot of publicity. But they decided that when you blow up a building, you have the mix of all of the materials, and it wasn't clean.
right.
So they were going to demolish the rest of it with a headache ball and take the bricks in one pile and the concrete in another pile and then the reinforcing in another pile. So it was pretty labor intensive, but they salvaged the different parts so they could be reused. And there was this one tower that was left. Again, it was a lunch that I had with Berkeley, NSF visitation, and the guy next to me was Ron Mays. And I said, well, I have this idea. There is this structure there that could be tested for seismic stuff. And we started to talk, and then we got in touch with NSF, and they gave us money to write a proposal, and then they gave us money to do the testing. What we did was Ron Mays and I were the co-principal investigators, and then we hired Boeing to we put a shaker, a box on the top floor on a steel plate on which we had an aluminum plate with holes in it, and we put hardened steel balls in it, and then we put a steel box on top, and that could be loaded full of lead.
Oh, okay.
And then we had a hydraulic jack and a dynamometer to measure the forces attached to the wall. And they had a pump that they used for some of their missile testing. So I had all of this sitting on the 11th floor. I had to open up the top of the building to get this stuff down in there. And then the instrumentation, the accelerometers, and that we subcontracted to McDonnell Douglas in St. Louis. And so what we did the first time, we had another group coming in to do dynamic tests with a rotating mass. And So we determined the various frequencies and mode shapes without damaging the building. And then we installed this doomsday device and started shaking it and getting damage and getting ultimately, on the first floor, we took out 6 out of the 13 columns that were holding the thing. But we couldn't really destroy the building because as you increase the damage, your dynamics changed, and so it quieted down again. I really wasn't going to lose all of my equipment, so we kept it. The building was moving at natural frequencies of a hertz and a half or so. It was 90 feet high, and it was moving back and forth about 3 feet this way and that way. I mean, the building was dancing. Mm-hmm. And it was shaking.
And that's while Jim was in it.
It wasn't at the full thing, but he was on the advisory committee, and he got scared. But he didn't get as scared as the Jack Scalzi, who was the NSF guy. But I had confidence in it. Even though it was concrete, I had confidence in it. Anyway, it was a fun project.
It was a fun project. So was that your most interesting project, or do you have another, what you would call most interesting research project?
No, I think this was the most interesting.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you talked about you moved on to being a professor at the University of Minnesota, and you taught there the rest of your career.
Yeah.
With such a long history with engineering students, what's the best advice you could give them?
Well, I tell you that the most important course that they really ought to get in their bloodstream is statics.
Yes. That's the foundation for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not only for structures, but for straight thinking.
Yeah.
So I think, all the rest, and nowadays with the computers, but you still have to know your statics to see whether what you have is right or not.
Yeah, if it makes any sense. What do you think's the greatest reward you've received from teaching for so many years?
Oh, come to the AISC committee meetings or the conferences, and all of the students, former students, I mean, that's great. And I don't know if you know Terry Zwick.
Yes, of course, Terry.
Anyway, he was an undergraduate, and he wanted to work in steel, and he couldn't get a job. So I said, well, why don't you go up to Mississippi Valley, which no longer exists, I don't think, and said, I'll work for you for nothing for the summer. And he did that, and, I think he was a pretty big shot in the AISC.
He is, and he's the head of Atlas Iron Works in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, then there are many examples like that.
Yeah.
But since you know him and you know that I had influence on him, and we remained good friends. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, I have so many of these cases, and I have a lot of friends. Mm-hmm. So that's it.
So it's very fulfilling.
Yes.
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 You're known as the father of LRFD.
Oh, yeah.
Being one of its first proponents. When did you first start working with LRFD?
Okay, well, that's another longer story. But at Lehigh, we were very gung-ho about plastic design and working at the ultimate level rather than the serviceability level. And then I got involved with a committee that developed the first load factor design code for bridges. That was in the mid to late 60s. And from that came the idea of changing the AISC specifications and getting a load and resistance factor type, we called it first limit states design, but since concrete used that, we had to change. At any rate, Ivan Viest, I don't know if you know him.
I don't know.
No, anyway, he was a Bethlehem Steel research engineer, and he helped to get support from the AISI to start this in 1969. And I was able to get Ravi Ravindra, who had just gotten his PhD at Waterloo University in Toronto, in Canada. And he came to work with me in Washington University in 69 or 70. And we had, I would say, one of the most wonderful collaborations that we had it worked about 3 years. And every day something new. It was fantastic. And by about 1975, we had the LRFD specs, which is now your regular spec, pretty much in place, and things are very much still in that same framework. You know, the details have changed a little, but and then it took a while to convince this
AISC bunch.
Yeah, and then we said that, well, we can do this for steel, but you know, the load part has to be really applicable for all the materials. So the NSF sponsored the 2 months of summer work at the Bureau of Standards with Bruce Ellingwood and Alan Cornell and Jim McGregor and myself. We were basically locked up in the room during the summer of 79, and we hammered out pretty much the load factors that are in the ASCE 7.
Okay.
And
so that's still what we're using today.
Yeah. And then we had there was an ASCE conference in September, Structures Congress in Chicago in September 79, and we had a whole series of sessions there, and that was all published in an ASCE structural journal, September 79. And again, that's sort of the basis for what went on. Then it took, in 81, we had a meeting just like this in Oconomowoc, near Milwaukee.
A specification committee meeting.
Yeah, and that's where the AISC LRFD spec was hammered out. And it was a fiery meeting.
I was going to say, what did everybody think about it?
Well, there was some... between George Winter and Ivan Viest, they almost came to blows. And these both are, PhD types. I mean, these weren't practicing people. And then it took until 86 for the first spec to come out. So 69 to 86.
So that's quite a while.
Yeah. But it was very worthwhile.
Have you ever thought about writing your LRFD memoirs? It's probably a really good story.
People keep asking me this because I have other experiences also that, the war and after the war. One of my former students, Max Lay in Australia, he and I have been talking about writing the history of plastic design. But the LRFD memoirs, I don't know, there are still too many of them are alive. So I'm not sure.
You could write them and then say they have to be published in 50 or 100 years.
Just to tell you about what I think of writing memoirs. And that is, if you're going to write a memoir of your life, you should start thinking about it in high school and start taking notes.
Yeah.
Because your memory is faulty. Unless it's written down.
Sure.
On a daily basis, it's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah. I've worked through with Ivan Viest on his memoirs, and it took him, I think, 4 or 5 years to get it all together, and he took notes.
Oh, he did.
Yeah. I don't think it's accurately in there anymore.
Okay.
So it's not going to happen.
You've been a longtime friend of AISC and very involved. How has AISC changed since you first became involved?
My first involvement was at Lehigh and the plastic design work, and then the 1963 specification, which was a big turning point in the AISC. And the person that was the sort of the controlling personality was Ted Higgins. I think that since after he retired, the AISC was more of a collective organization. I think Bill Millick probably had a very big influence on AISC and Jerry Heyer. Mm-hmm. But I think it's, this all came then with when the laws began to change, that you had to have consensus documents, and that there couldn't be any strong personality pushing things. It all had to be voted on, and it had to be sort of leveled out.
Right, that's the ANSI accreditation, I think.
Yeah. So things those are the things that have changed, and I think attitudes or the concerns about legal issues have really been stronger than they used to be in the beginning.
Right.
And AISC has become a much bigger organization, and not just an engineering organization, but also a commercial organization, and then also in terms of assisting people. And in the beginning, when I first started, there were a lot more people out in the field, and had regional engineers, and they were fairly frequent, and Ray Tide was one of them, mm-hmm. Larry Kloiber, and then many others. Those things have changed, and now everything is a little more centralized, but then you've got the communications equipment and all of that, things
Sure.
have. Sure. But it's still a great organization, and I tell you something, compared to some of the other similar organizations, you've got some pretty heavy lifters. You've got 8 people in the National Academy of Engineering in your committees, which
very
is
impressive.
It is absolutely so. So there is a lot here and a lot to be proud of.
We are very proud, and that leads me to my next question. At AISC, we depend greatly on our volunteers that serve on the specification committee and the task committees that are so generous with their time. What do you get out of serving on the committees?
Oh, well, obviously the structure of the AISC specs is something that we started to work out. So I've been rewarded, and there are lots of things in there that I've put in and I've worked with, and then fellowship with the people. There's plenty of rewards here, and the research support through the years. That's not inconsiderate.
So that's a big thing too.
So no, it was a very rewarding experience.
And you've been on the specification committee for how long?
I don't know exactly, but I think it's somewhere in the early to mid 70s.
So you've been around for a while.
Yeah, I've been around. But it doesn't matter.
You've no doubt also attended a great number of AISC steel conferences over the years. Do you have one that stands out as your favorite?
Well, there was this conference in Las Vegas during the election campaign. And I don't remember what year it was exactly, but Ross Perot was a candidate.
So probably in the 80s, I guess?
Yeah, and or early 90s. Anyway, we had the conference in the same hotel as Ross Perot, and I was giving a talk on design of angles at the same time that Ross Perot was giving a talk in another room in the same hotel. I don't know what he was talking about. I remember the one once in Memphis. I had a Mississippi riverboat ride that went with that. It was wonderful. And I guess one in Tucson, or so there was a rodeo that was with it. So it's been good.
So there's a lot of good ones.
Yeah.
In such a long and illustrious career, what are you most proud of?
Of my students. Yeah. I'm really proud.
What do you think has been your greatest accomplishment to date?
Again, the students.
Your students.
Yeah.
So you take your students over LRFD?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Your wife, Barbara, is an avid and well-known bird watcher.
Yeah.
What's it like to stand in her shadow in the bird watching world?
I am an assistant to a bird watcher. And I tell you, the big difference between her and I is patience. I just,
You don't have any?
not that much. I remember once standing in a ditch for half a day to get the view of a barn owl for about a millisecond. So I'm not very good at that. But what we do is she has her birding activities with her birding colleagues once a week on Tuesdays. And these guys are hardcore. And then on weekends, Barb and I go walking in the woods or biking or cross-country skiing, take pictures, and see birds, but we don't stand there for
All day
to see it. So, but she's been a very good teacher to our kids and to a lot of other people in teaching them about nature. She was a high school teacher before we were married and after we were married for a while. But she retired after we had the first child, and so.
How many kids do you have?
4.
4?
Yeah. All 4 are in building of something.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
My daughter is a civil engineer, and my oldest son is a mechanical engineer with a PhD working at Sandia Corporation. My next son is a welder in the fab shop, and the youngest son is the one who sort of went a little astray, but he's an architect. And he is the most prominent, I think.
That's good.
He gets his homes published in the architecture magazines, and he built homes for the indigent in Aspen.
Wow.
The $16 million homes, things like that. Right now he is building a very big, fancy home in Kiev, Ukraine.
Oh, okay.
And I think he's a good architect in that he knows that things better not leak and that everything has to fit together. So he is sort of between an architect and a construction manager.
Yeah, sure.
And so he's pretty successful.
Sounds like it. I've heard that you're an avid cross-country skier and snowmobiler.
No, not snowmobiling.
No.
Oh, between the two there is eternal enmity.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Oh, yes.
I think Jim Fisher told me that.
No, he really got you the wrong information. No.
So you're a cross-country skier.
Oh, yes.
Have you ever had any accidents?
No. I had an accident downhill in Australia a long time ago, 1970, and I didn't think that was for me.
So it's not the cross-country skiing, it was the downhill skiing that got you?
Oh, yeah.
You said no after that?
No.
So you've traveled the world.
Yeah.
What's your favorite destination?
Well, I tell you, I very much like the South. New Zealand and Australia and South Africa. And I guess I've spent most of my time in Australia, and I think I would feel comfortable there. So, but,
To live?
Yeah.
To live, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any place that you've still got on your list that you want to go that you haven't been yet?
Well, these are places that are historical, and then I'll never get there. But there would be probably in the old cities in what is now Uzbekistan, the old Muslim universities and the buildings that they built there. Or maybe down in Iran to see the cities that Alexander the Great built.
Oh, that would be impressive.
So, but this is not going to happen. But you can dream.
You can dream. You
Yeah.
can dream. If you weren't involved in the engineering industry, what other profession do you think you would have liked to have tried?
I don't think I could.
Nothing?
No.
No? Engineering all the way.
No, I mean, I would have been a teacher of some sort.
Sure.
But no, I like what I'm doing.
Well, we're glad that you chose it.
So I'm glad too.
Obviously, you speak Hungarian. Can you tell us how you say I love steel in Hungarian?
Szeretem az acélt.
So we'll all have to be able to repeat that back to you now.
Okay.
Whenever people come up and see you, they can say I love steel to you in Hungarian.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of people confuse me that I'm a Greek
Oh, okay.
because of my first name, and my last name could also be Greek. But if you want to translate, my name is Theodore Victor Galambos, and that means God-given victorious pigeon thief.
That's the translation in Hungarian or in Greek?
No, well, no. Theodore is Greek, God-given. Victor is victorious or heroic, And Galambos in Hungarian means pigeon catcher or pigeon thief or something like that. So
That's great. Well, thank you so much again, Ted, for taking the time to talk to me today. I really enjoyed this.
okay, I hope some of this is not going to come back and bite me.
I can't guarantee that, but
Well, all right. Anyway, it was a pleasure, and you are a very good interviewer.
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
This has been a presentation by the American Institute of Steel Construction.
Join us next month, where I'll be talking to Radar Bjorhovda, our expert on international research.
For more information on AISC continuing education opportunities, please visit us on the web at aisc.org/seminars. And remember, there's always a solution in steel.